Attention Northwest Arkansas businesses and talent seekers. Introducing OnboardNWA.com, your hyperlocal job board crafted for our unique community. Struggling to find the perfect match for your job openings? Onboard NWA simplifies the hiring process, connecting you with the region's top talent through tailored talent matching solutions. Whether you're an employer seeking expertise or a professional looking for your next opportunity, Onboard NWA is here for you. Discover more at onboardnwa.com, and let's build the future of Northwest Arkansas together.
Support for this episode comes from Signature Bank of Arkansas. Founded here in Northwest Arkansas in 2005, Signature Bank of Arkansas is a full-service bank offering traditional checking and savings accounts, investment accounts, business and personal loans, and mortgages. When you bank with a community bank, you're investing in local businesses, local entrepreneurs, local charities, and the causes that are close to home. Signature Bank has worked hard to earn its tagline, community banking at its best. Give the folks at Signature Bank a call today at 479-684-4700 or visit their website, signature.bank, and let them know you heard about them here first on the I Am Northwest Arkansas podcast. Signature Bank of Arkansas is a member of the FDIC and an equal housing lender.
It's time for another episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas, the podcast covering the intersection of business, culture, entrepreneurship, and life in general here in the Ozarks. Whether you are considering a move to this area or trying to learn more about the place you call home, we've got something special for you. Here's our host, Randy Wilburn.
Hey folks, and welcome to another episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas. I'm your host, Randy Wilburn, and I'm excited to be with you today. Not only am I sitting in front of the founder of one of my favorite restaurants here in Northwest Arkansas, but for those of you that really know me, I'm a wing guy, and I've been a wing guy all my life. And so I'm sitting here with Tom Gordon, one of the founders of Slim Chickens. And Tom was kind enough to give me an audience and sit down with the I Am Northwest Arkansas family to share his story and tell us a little bit about Slim Chickens and how he got started. You know, one of the things that we like to think about here at I Am Northwest Arkansas is that we focus on the intersection of business, culture, entrepreneurship, and life here in the Ozarks. And so Tom kind of fits into a number of those categories. So without further ado, Tom Gordon, how are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So listen, Tom, I would love for you, and one of the things we love to start off with is the individual, whoever we're interviewing, we love to get their superhero origin stories. So I would love for you to kind of share a little bit about how you got started. And I mean, you can go back to kindergarten if you want, but you can also you could start at college when you guys got together and founded Slim Chickens. But I just, wherever you want to start is up to you.
That'd be great. How about we start in high school?
Perfect.
Just for a moment.
Yes.
So I knew my partner and co-founder, Greg Smart, in high school in Little Rock, Arkansas. And we were friends, and we'd go, out and fish and hunt and, cause trouble on Friday nights together. And we separated apart, but, we all went to different colleges. He went to Ole Miss. I went to TCU in Fort Worth. I got my degree in finance and real estate and, thought I was going to be a stockbroker. And I was glamorous back then, and I was curious about it. And I got my job at a large nationally known House Merrill Lynch back then. And, that began kind of a journey because it only took about a month to realize I didn't like doing that. I was cold calling folks for bonds. It was just not what I wanted to do. And I just couldn't quite make it fit in my mind that this would be the career for me forever. So I stopped that. And then my restaurant career began. So it was interesting because I had a finance and real estate degree, but I went straight into just waiting tables and tended bar and started working for Macaroni Grill back in the heyday of Mac Grill for Brinker. And, I did every job in the restaurant and, I was pretty good at it. I liked it. It was active. And after several years, they offered me a post as an area director, someone who would manage, 4 or 5 restaurants. And I turned it down. I just didn't want to do it. I didn't know why. I think it was the entrepreneurial itch that I couldn't articulate back then, but I wanted to do something for myself. And so from there, I moved to Los Angeles, and I worked for Sunset Conglomerate Restaurants. We had the Miyagi sushi bars and Saddle Ranch chop houses, and, did big box volumes in LA. And, it was a great learning experience for me. And I tell everybody, going out on your own in your 20s and carving out a life without any help in a big city it's a very formative thing. And, you feel like you can conquer the world if you can carve out your own niche and do something. So I did that for a while. And about 2 years into that, Greg and I started talking about the Slim Chickens concept. And we spent a year and a half kind of working on the idea, ideating the brand, thinking about the menu and how we would do it together as a group. And eventually I said, all right, let's do it. And moved from LA here to Northwest Arkansas in Fayetteville, and Slim Chickens began.
Okay, so I'm trying to connect the dots here, because did you have family or connections or a relationship here in Northwest Arkansas?
I didn't have anything in Northwest Arkansas. I had family in Little Rock, but it was growing like crazy up here. And Greg had told me how great it was up here.
Yeah.
What a great place to live and work and all things about a great community. And also, there was no concept like what we wanted to do up here either. We'd seen some of these throughout the Southeast, but in Northwest Arkansas, there was nothing like it. And so it was also not only a great place to live and work, but a fertile ground for a new concept.
Yeah. I love that idea. And I'm just curious, out of all of those different places that you worked, what was it about this concept or about chicken that you said, this was probably the route that we want to go? I mean, because you did sushi, you did a lot of different things. So,
well, it was more about the intersection of opportunity with geography. There was just nothing here that was like what we wanted to do. And it was growing so fast, and still is, as you well know, that we thought it'd be a great place to start a concept. And then we believed that we could springboard off to Tulsa and Kansas City and Little Rock and Dallas. And we've done all that, since then. But those things together made Northwest Arkansas where we wanted to be. Greg was here working in retail before, and like I said, he loved it, and it was just a good spot to start.
Yeah. So, well, that's awesome. And then, so your original concept is everything that you originally started out with at Slim Chicken still mostly on the menu, or did you change some things as you grew?
I think we've certainly evolved. We've improved things over the years, subtle tweaks to process and efficiency. But when it comes to food, everything that we had originally, we've just added some items on the menu, some desserts and chicken and waffles like we've talked about before and those sort of things. But all the original items are still there, and we still sell a whole lot of them.
Yeah. And then you've added the signature sandwiches recently.
That's right.
I think that have been really tasty. I've had a few of those and I really enjoy them. So what do you have to say about just the evolution of Northwest Arkansas as a whole? I know a lot of people that listen to this podcast, some people that are from here, they know, right? Some people have been here as long as I have, which is 6 years or less. Other people are just getting here, and still some people that have been here for a lifetime and have seen so many fundamental changes in the area. What really stands out in your mind about how this area has continued to evolve?
Well, it's a unique part of the country, and it's unique for several reasons. One, you got the university here, which is a vibrant hub of activity and thought leadership and learning and education. And it's a great anchor to the community. But then also, fortunately, we have 3 Fortune 50 organizations that are based here in Northwest Arkansas. You got Walmart, Tyson, J.B. Hunt, and lots of others as well. And all of these kind of generate an ecosystem that feels like a much bigger city. There's culture and arts and music and restaurants and great things that a place this size often doesn't get, or doesn't get as soon as we have gotten it here in Northwest Arkansas. And for those reasons, it's a great place for business. It's a great place for us to recruit. It's a great place to raise children. School systems are amazing in every community up here. And, this area really has been a great springboard for our organization to go from.
Yeah. It's funny, as you were saying that, I was thinking about some of my experiences and interactions there at Slim Chickens. And I've noticed that, a lot of times these young people nowadays get a bad rap, right? In terms of their ability to interact with the public and what have you. But I have noticed, and I don't know what it is. It might be part of your training, and maybe you can kind of share that with the audience today, but your folks tend to be dialed in, right? And there's a difference. You know what I'm talking about,
Sure.
too. You go to some places and it's like, hello, is anybody home? I come to Slim Chickens and, people are greeting you. They're looking you in their eye and your eye, and really engaging you and connecting with you, which I found to be very, even in a fast casual restaurant, I found that to be really nice. And so what have you guys done internally to kind of amp that up?
Right. Well, the restaurant business is not just making widgets in a factory that's unseen by the public, and not that there's anything wrong with that. But the restaurant business is hospitality. And, good food is table stakes. Good service is table stakes. If you don't have those two things, you're not going to make it. But we believe in teaching hospitality. We want to make sure our people engage our guests. We want the team members' experience to be as good as the guest experience. We want happiness and cohesive interactions between all of our folks in the restaurants. And so we do spend probably an inordinate amount of time thinking and training true hospitality. It is speak and look in someone's eyes and what can I get you? And go the extra mile. Can I get you a refill? Can I get you anything else? Can I clear your plate for you? Those things are part of the brand and part of the, essence of the brand. But that essence is taking care of people and taking care of guests, hospitality. And where that really ends up going is it's the experience. And I've done interviews and podcasts where I've said, I like the experience business. I like restaurants. I like hotels. I like travel. I like giving people an opportunity to have an experience they may not have had otherwise.
Right. Yeah. Well, you guys are certainly doing a good job of it. And I know at some point in the arc of the growth of Slim Chickens, you guys realized, was it that you came to a conclusion that you couldn't do it on your own in terms of taking over the world with Slim Chickens, that you were going to add franchisees to the mix? What was the whole franchise model? Was that initially in the original stages of the company, or at some point did you decide this is when we're going to do that?
We always felt like franchising would be a piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Because it is using others' capital to expand the brand. We started this business with almost nothing. We were destitute for 10 years. We didn't make any money at all. And so part of the formula was always going to be franchising to allow the brand to expand.
Yeah.
What we did not know at the time was what the mix would be, what the ratio would be. We have, over the past, 5 or 6 years, as we have built out the corporate team here in Northwest Arkansas and, the dozen or so people we have working around the country, the franchising really is the engine that best fits with how the brand is positioned. We have franchisees that want the brand. People want it, and people want to put it in their markets. People want to serve their communities with this brand. And so our focus now is largely on the franchising side of the business, and that's the majority of the stuff that we'll do going forward.
Okay. And speaking of which, you haven't let any grass grow under your feet as a company because you have expanded beyond the confines of this continent. You were in Ireland, right?
We are in the UK. We have 11 restaurants in the UK, and we have 2 restaurants in Kuwait.
In Kuwait, yeah.
That's right.
And now, which one opened first? Was it Kuwait or the UK locations?
Kuwait opened first.
Okay, all right. And how's that going out there?
Kuwait's been good. They've been very shut down with COVID, as you might imagine. So is the UK.
Right.
Our UK partners actually saw one of the stores in Kuwait on one of their travels and called us. We got in touch, and the UK business has been great. It's been phenomenal. We have a great partnership group over there, and the people of the UK just love it. And we've had a good run over there. Right.
So chicken is kind of taking over, what is it? Fish and chips.
I don't know about taking over, but we're certainly going to be a viable option for a long time.
There you go. There you go. Well, listen, I know you said something earlier that stood out in terms of just the 10-year struggle. And, there's some famous stories, and I would love to just kind of tap into that because I know a lot of people listening to this. There's some people that want to start a business. Maybe they're thinking about coming here to relocate a business, or and they're listening to what you're saying about, the trials and tribulations that you went through to get where you are now, right? And so what could you share about like that experience, that first 10 years that really kind of molded you into the business person that you are today? I know there's a famous story out there about how one of you, either you or your partner, Greg, had to consider selling a car to make payroll. And that gets real, right? As a business owner, that gets real. But I would love for you to just talk a little bit about that and how that has informed how you operate Slim Chickens today.
Yeah, sure. That's a big question to drive through. But let me see if I can do some of it. That famous story is right, and in fact, I think twice we were in a position where we were like throwing rock, paper, scissors to see who's going to have to sell a truck to make payroll. That did happen. We also used to not put out paychecks until 6 o'clock on Friday so we could take all the money out of the registers on Friday after the lunch business and deposit it to make payroll. We did that for a long time.
Yeah.
In terms of what it did for me as an entrepreneur and a business person, hindsight's always 20/20, and you look back and you realize that we were woefully undercapitalized to execute the vision that we wanted to execute. Whatever that was, we were undercapitalized to do that.
Yeah.
So we spent a lot of time, with our back against the wall, and there was really only two paths. It was, bankruptcy forever or success. And so we had to find a way with those we worked with to try to ensure the path to success. What that meant to us at the time was high levels of communication with vendors, with bankers, with our staff. If something couldn't happen because of the financial situation, we want to get ahead of it. We didn't want to let that be a surprise to anybody. We worked with our vendors, we worked with our bankers, and tried to be very communicative. And I guess a big lesson out of that for me, and I think for anybody is, don't let those who you work with be surprised even by a problem. Make sure you're ahead of it. Make sure you're working with all those folks who have supported your business and try to stay ahead of those things. Because if you can stay ahead of it, you can often work it out and find some path. That was very important to us because we couldn't write a check to solve problems.
Yeah.
And we had to keep food in the restaurant, and we had to keep people in the restaurant, and we had to keep the restaurant open. And that also meant, Greg and I working 100 hours a week for years and years and years. And look, we just were hard-headed and committed, and we didn't want to give up. And, eventually it paid off.
Yeah. I love that story. And I think people need to hear that too, because, it's a lot of times you see, like, I look at you now and I see the end result, right? Well, you're not done. You're still conquering the world with your great chicken. But I look at you and I'm like, well, okay, well, you kind of gotten to that place, but you're still hungry. You still have a desire to see, greater accomplishments. But I think it speaks volumes. And I know I also read somewhere where you talked about how important it was to have a strong banking relationship and how that really plays into it. And I've talked on this podcast several times. I've had Gary Head on the podcast, which is a huge community banker. And I've talked about the importance. If you're starting a business, the first thing you have to have is a strong banking relationship.
That's right.
And it's actually one of the reasons why so many people are still struggling to get their PPP monies because they don't have a good banking relationship. And I would love for you just to kind of just share your thoughts on what that meant for you, because you said a couple of things. You were able to manage expectations all the way around. Suppliers, vendors, employees, everybody knew, hey, I'm not going to let you down. And if anybody's going to take the L, it's going to be Tom here and not somebody else. But, I think that's important. And a lot of times in business, we don't take the time to manage other people's expectations. But I would love for you to just share the importance of that local banking relationship.
Sure. In the beginning, you have to have a place to deposit your dollars, and that's where you start. Luckily for me, I ran into some really great, just true blue, wonderful people that were willing to help. Yeah. And willing to, as long as I communicated up front, bend the rules a little bit to allow us to survive. And, there are people, and I couldn't possibly name them or the bank because I'm afraid I might still get them in trouble. But, I still work with them today. I still talk to them today.
Right.
We still go have coffee today.
Yeah.
Because, look, they saved us on more than one occasion they did it because they could, and they did it because I asked. They did it because I didn't surprise them with problems. I said, listen, this is coming. Here's how we can solve this. I need 3 more days or whatever.
Yeah.
But those people really made a huge difference for us. And they will for any small business. I think that if you have your business plan put together for something you want to do, thinking about being capitalized in a more appropriate way so you don't have to wrestle those demons is a better way to go. But inevitably, you're going to have a couple of times and issues where you got to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that speaks volumes to, what I find to be a strong entrepreneurial mindset here in Northwest Arkansas.
Very much.
And I think people are willing to bet on new opportunities here because this area is growing. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine the growth that we're going to experience just in the next 15, 20 years?
That's right.
It's going to be off the charts. So
should be.
Speaking of growth, where do you see Slim Chickens in the next 5 to 10 years? And I'm going to switch gears on you now and have you put your Nostradamus hat on and tell us what you think the future holds, for you guys specifically, but also for, just chicken in general as a staple, within a restaurant.
Well, chicken as a protein in the United States and around the world isn't going to go away. I mean, there's no political or religious objection that I know of to chicken anywhere.
No.
And there is to beef and pork in different places around the world.
Right.
Chicken's also the least expensive protein that is natural that you can grow. And so it's going to have a place on tables. It's going to have a place in restaurants, I think, forever. For us, we love it. We love chicken and we love the recipes we put out and then the food that we put out. And, we believe that there is going to be continued demand and a wide swath of growth for us over the next 10 years. Now we're in the phase where the company is in great shape and we can be more strategic and thoughtful about how we can build restaurants for our franchisees and have a much better track record and be more successful and shore up the risk that we just couldn't see in the early days. So our path is to, being a multi-billion-dollar brand. We believe that path is imminent.
Yeah.
We believe that we are going to work every day and every year to get to, hundreds, if not thousands of restaurants around the world. And that is what the leadership team here is committed to and what the team's committed to.
Okay. Well, and then what would you say to a young version of yourself, a young Tom Gordon or a young Greg Smart, and if that might be listening to this thinking, man, I want to do what you're doing. What would you say to them?
I'd say go for it. And I would say that, the sky's the limit. If you can persevere, you can communicate, if you can stay ahead. But I've also said, and this is not the first time I've said this, is that if I look back at my younger self and what would I say to young Tom Gordon, to be like, just relax. Everybody's got a perspective. Be willing to hear it.
Yeah.
Maybe fight a little less. I mean, I rubbed some people the wrong way in my younger, more aggressive days. But, I say that now, but I may not be here today if I wouldn't have. It's hard to know. But I think being more open and thoughtful to other ideas is valuable. I mean, I was somewhat closed off to that early on, but I was focused on Slims,
Right. Well, and there's nothing wrong with having that kind of tunnel vision. So, yeah, I totally get that. So we didn't really talk about it much. And of course, the pandemic has played a major role in how any restaurant or any service provider is operating. And one of the things that we've done over the last year is we really gave voice to those service industries that were really struggling at this time. A lot of people out of work, food insecurity, the whole 9 yards. If you had to sum it up, how have you guys faced this and overcome what was really a rough time for everybody?
It really was. And I've got friends of mine in the white tablecloth business that just suffered so mightily and are just now, if they survived, kind of trying to get back to some sense of normalcy. For us, because we had the app and online ordering and drive-thrus, we were in a good position to really be able to take advantage of the need of the guest. It wasn't necessarily just, hey, we want to be in here to sell, but like the community needed us and we felt like that. And we wanted to make sure we were here for the community.
Yeah.
Those first weeks, like we were talking about of the last weeks of March and first weeks of April were scary times, but the leadership team here and my partners here, we committedly said, look, we're not going to furlough anybody. We're not going to cut paychecks for anybody. First paychecks get cut will be mine, and we're going to try to make this work. And so I think we did, and we ended up having a good year because we were well positioned to serve those communities in those channels that I just discussed. And we were able to hire and add jobs, and we're still doing that.
No, that's awesome. And as a customer, as I was sharing with you earlier, I could certainly attest to that. We spent quite a minute. I mean, it was like one of our few getaways was getting takeouts at Slim's, and we almost didn't go out for, I don't think, maybe 6 or 7 months.
Oh yeah.
But we did get takeout. And that was the one thing that we tried to do. We tried to get takeout from as many places as we could go. But if I had to press myself and see how many times we went to Slim's, I think that was on the order of everything, because I've got 3 growing boys. That was probably the highest, rated place that we went. And you guys did a great job of that. And I did notice that, the attitude, as I said earlier, of your employees was always very positive, and everybody was always willing to help out whenever, we had an order or anything like that. So you guys are doing a great job with that.
I'm glad to hear that, and I appreciate the compliment. We strive for those things: hospitality, service, friendliness. Those are really important things to us. And look, I've got 2 boys too. I mean, you can only cook at home so many nights where you got to just break out and get something else.
You have to. Everybody needs an escape from the kitchen every now and then.
That's right. So we did it too. We go through those drive-thrus once or twice a week and get lunch or dinner for everybody, and try to support other restaurants as well, because in the end it was tough for a lot of restaurants.
Yeah.
Slim Chickens will be fine. I think that supporting everybody in Northwest Arkansas that's in this business is important right now.
Yeah, it helps us all. So real quickly, before we close out, any books or anything that you've read that have really guided you, have been kind of a North Star for you in terms of what you're doing? And it may not necessarily be a book, it may be an individual, but outside of what you're doing here at Slim Chickens, what has moved Tom Gordon, further in advance of where you're going?
I'll tell you a book and a person. How about that?
That's perfect.
One of each. When I was in college, I used to go work in Montana on a ranch, and I'd ride a horse and work cows and be out in the mountains. And we had some guests there too that would do fly fishing and stuff like that. But I read a Ben Yehuda's biography of Will Rogers. And, people in this day and age don't really know who Will Rogers was. He was such a man of his time, but now history has gone by and he's just not as well known. But that book was important to me because here's a guy, kind of the last of the cowboys, and decided he was going to do everything his own way.
Yeah.
It was his program, how he wanted to do it. He's going to make success out of himself. It just was inspiring. I'm like, that is the kind of mindset that I wanted to have.
Yeah.
And I tried to get my 14-year-old to read it. He gave it a little bit of a shot, but it might take till you're 18 or 19 to read it. But whatever, he'll read it at some point.
Absolutely.
Anyway, it made an impact on me.
Sure.
And I'm not sure if that book will make the same impact on everybody, but I thought it was great, and it was the right time in my life. I was in my late teens, about to be 20, didn't know where I was really going or what I wanted to do, and it was important.
Well, I'm a big student of biographies, actually, because I think, there's nothing new under the sun. And if you read a biography, you can glean so much from the life of somebody else. I know right. I've read Ben Franklin's Ulysses S. Grant by Ron Chernow is amazing. And you start to really, especially historical figures, you start to really, you see what they went through. And so, yeah, I agree 100%.
Person that made an influence on me that I just remember because it's such a great story is when I had 4 restaurants, I got to meet a guy named Ralph Mason. Ralph Mason was at one point the largest Sonic franchisee in the system. And I got to go to his office in Oklahoma City and sit and have lunch with him. And, it was like you're in the presence of royalty.
Right.
And you sit there and you just want to listen. And he was in his 70s, late 70s probably. And we talked and, I just tried to discuss with him and I wanted to be him. Like I wanted 400 restaurants. And I asked him, I said, how did you do this? Like, I want to be like you. I want to have a big system. I want to take care of people. I want to have a lot of restaurants. I want to make money. And he looked at me and he goes, well, Tom. And I thought, man, here I'm about to catch the golden egg right here. And I was ready for him to tell me. And he goes, one store at a time.
That's it.
And, I tell that story all the time because it's just so true. You got to make them all work. And the only way to make them all work is one at a time.
Right. It's almost like when you tell somebody, how do you get somewhere? It's like steady plodding, and nobody wants to hear that because it's not sexy. It's not, it's just, you get in, you roll up your sleeves and you get your hands dirty, and that's what it takes.
They talk about the 10 years to overnight success. That was true. And I don't know how many, really wealthy guys I spoke to in my younger days about business, and they all said, you don't make any money till you're 40. Yeah. And I'm like, man, I'm going to beat that. I'll get so far ahead of that. I didn't. I was right there on the track.
Yeah. So that's awesome. That's awesome. So, speaking of Northwest Arkansas, if somebody listening to this that doesn't know a lot about this area, what is one thing that really stands out to you about Northwest Arkansas? Maybe something that you like to do when you're off time, or that really, is one of the reasons that kind of keeps you grounded here outside of Slim's. But yeah.
Well, I think that it's hard to separate, life and work for all of us, right?
Yeah, and absolutely.
Northwest Arkansas has a wonderfully supportive entrepreneurial and startup community.
Yep.
And that's been a great support system for all of us. But then you range the whole gamut to the gigantic organizations that are here. And I think that mix of people that want to do their own thing, along with, big time experienced executives that come in and out of Northwest Arkansas for these big companies, that alchemy is really interesting, and it really allows for opportunities to bubble up. And so if you've got that, and you've got a great place to live that's supportive of families and kids and arts and music and life, and it's a great mix and a great blend of ideas, cultures, and it's a very open and welcoming place. And it's been great for me and my family and my company.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, finally, if I press somebody that knew you really well and said, what is Tom's favorite quote Or what do you hear come out of Tom's mouth all the time? What would it be?
Man, I don't know. What comes out of my mouth all the time? I don't know if I could say it on air. Probably what I say more than anything else. But I tell you what I tell my team all the time, which I think is kind of a mantra that we try to live by, is I tell them, never tell yourself, I'll get to it tomorrow.
Yeah.
You can get to it today.
Do it.
Do it today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Make that call. Send that last email. Go check on that one restaurant. Whatever it is that you got to do, if it's doable today, do it today.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, never put off till tomorrow what you can do today. So.
I just don't say never tell yourself that.
Yeah.
Just never let that be
the
mindset.
Yeah. That's good. That's good advice. I need that. That helps me. I'm writing a book and I need that reminder every day that I've got to get up and get some writing in. So yeah, absolutely.
I still do it too. I'll say, man, I'll do it tomorrow. I'm like, wait a minute.
No.
Can't do it.
I got to live by my own creed here.
That's right.
So yeah.
It's just important if you say it out loud and think about it.
Yeah.
Then it kind of pops up in your daily life.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, we'll end on that note. Tom Gordon, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking time to sit down with me and share a little bit of your story here at Slim Chickens and what you and Greg have done over the years. I congratulate you. You guys will be 20 years soon, so that's a big deal.
Big deal.
But we really appreciate it. And thank you for just sharing your story with my audience.
It's been great. I appreciate you coming.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, folks, there you have it. Another episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas, the podcast. To learn more about us or to read or download the show notes from today's episode, visit IamNorthwestArkansas.com. You can listen to this podcast and sign up for our free newsletter to keep up with us and all things NWA. Sign up today. You can also subscribe to the I Am Northwest Arkansas podcast wherever you listen to it, and please consider rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. Our podcasts come out every Monday, rain or shine. I'm your host, Randy Wilburn, and we'll see you back here next week for another episode of the I Am Northwest Arkansas podcast. Peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas. Check us out each and every week, available anywhere that great podcasts can be found. For show notes or more information on becoming a guest, visit IamNorthwestArkansas.com. We'll see you next week on I Am Northwest Arkansas.